chief of defense staff arrived earlier as well, in company of other senior military officers, including most of the defense chiefs, all in attendance. And we're still seeing the arrival of more and more members of the diplomatic corps there. And in the background, you're seeing people, citizens and indigents of Daura and, of course, Kastina at large. So this has been how it has played out since the news of his passing, reached Nigeria on Sunday. There has been an outpouring of, solidarity, messages of commiseration from friends of the country, friends of the former head of state, people who know him, even those who did not, but understood and appreciated what he stood for, Dr. Korede.
It's a testament to the character, the nature of the person, Muhammadu Buhari. It's what we're looking at, the result of the kind of relationship he chose to have with people whilst alive, in public service. We heard earlier from the gentleman that worked with him, closely in the media, that Baba Buhari was a president that was unassuming, somebody that would like to be your friend. He gives you the first shot to just make you calm down, like you're discussing, you're coming to meet with a fellow human being, a friend of yours, a father figure. Don't think you're coming to meet with an ego that has, a big fire on his head, as the case may be. So he has all this about him, yet not given away his integrous character that has built over the years and has made him. There's also a testament by a gentleman who fought alongside with him in the Civil War, a retired soldier who by fate happened to be my senior at my alma mater in secondary school, the Great Ibadan High School. Excuse me. He said to us, on the platform and then in writing, that at a time there was a change in government in the 70s. They were looking for who, will rightly become the next chief of army staff. Those who are the authorities, those who are in charge of that operation, suggested a Muhammadu Buhari to become the chief of army staff because of his uprightness, because of his frugality, because of his integrity, because of his commitment and dedication to service. But along the line, they said, guy, if you make this man the chief of army staff, he may not listen to us. So if we're about to change things and all that, he will just stand straight. He was younger, so he will do that at the time. So he did not become the chief of army staff. They chose another person. A time came, another coup occurred, which he did not participate in. And they now had learned from the mistake they made earlier. They said they are now looking for somebody that now has integrity to become Nigeria's head of state, to lead, governance, which was, how he became the military head of state of Nigeria, based on his good character. So you can see a lot of people, not only in Daura. This incidents that we're seeing now is happening in various homes, millions of homes throughout Nigeria, throughout Africa, and worldwide. Amongst human beings on earth, leaders on earth, Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, stands amongst those that you can, have, that has a place in the history when it comes to being an officer, a gentleman, a man of integrity, a man that is frugal, a good public officer that delivers on his words, that stands by his words and ensures that he delivers. A good example, or a father figure, to those who believe in him, to men and women of goodwill. We are not unmindful of naysayers, but we know that we'll keep doing the right things. We'll keep talking about Muhammadu Buhari as the right thing, and we'll just pray that people will see him as, a figure whose character, whose antecedents to be studied to guide them along life, as it had been in my own case. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at today.
All right. Very shortly, of course, we are expecting we'll get to the climax of today's activity very shortly as we continue to witness, of course, the movement of the VIPs and our international guests are there in Daura. I understand there was a slight delay in terms of the flight getting to Nigeria earlier. That perhaps, will be the cause of the fact while we were expecting this to begin at 2 for our viewers. Of course, the remains arrived earlier, about 3 o'clock, just before 3 o'clock in the Umar Musa Yar'Adua International Airport in Kastina, and has since proceeded for Daura. We're expecting the arrival in the next couple of minutes, since we have seen the arrival of the presidential delegation already, and some of the VIPs we earlier saw at the airport. Now that this has happened, sometimes events help to shape the course of history and help shape the course of a nation. Dr. Kinshiju, you know much about the legacies in terms of the economics of Buharism, of the Buhari tenure. Moving forward, are there things that we could pick up from his presidency for leaders of today and tomorrow in managing the affairs of the nation?
While it did not, in clear political definitive terms, described his leanings, his socio-political, economic leanings, but of course, scholars would easily situate him, in the context of a social democrat. And being a social democrat, it would be, of course, a first-line appeal, to the mass of the people. And in his own case, I think there was a profound linkage to the people at the base of the pyramid, for which he advocated, throughout those 8 years, for which, for the first time in the history of Nigeria's political economy, he created an office that, of course, evolved to become the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. And of course, one also had the unfortunate resistance of that concept by the larger class of Nigerian elites who thought that the activities of that office of social intervention, when it was first created, couldn't have been impactful. It wasn't until some of us also amplified that advocacy to say that it was not just about Muhammadu Buhari. It's actually a concept developed by the World Bank, and that this concept fitted properly into the advocacy of the president at that time. Because for him, where virtually the higher cadre of the political class and the economic class, as it were, benefited from the little meager resources that get into the public space, the larger number of Nigerians, and he inherited about 85 million, Nigerians living under the poverty line in 2015. And I think we also need to put that into historical perspective. As at that time, we had 85 million Nigerians living under $1, the global poverty benchmark at that time, under $1 a day. And so this was a huge inheritance for him. It was a huge legacy to manage. So when he started, of course, to implement those interventions, people who couldn't understand the context of that intervention, and of course the context of the person behind it, where of course, how do I call it now? We're enraged, more or less, because I know I was involved in a number of social engagements with some of these otherwise highly knowledgeable Nigerians. But for him, it was an exercise that needed to be done and see to the end. because it was talking about taking Nigerians, millions of Nigerians out of poverty. And the first thing, the approach was first, let's stabilize these poor people. And that the economies of poverty is to state that these are potentials in redundancy. If you are able to create an economic agent or economic agency out of a human being that could not live sustainably, you are also adding to the capacity, or the economic capacity, of the nation. So I think the burden of poverty is still a major challenge for the Nigerian states, and there is still a need, to have focused programs, focused policies to circle out large numbers, of people in the poverty circles in Nigeria. Now, of course, that argument was also furthered by the World Bank, who also now moved from the financial definition of the monetary definition of poverty to the multidimensional poverty, to say that more than 135 million Nigerians were living in multi-dimensional poverty. And of course, it became a political information, that was not exactly, how do I call it, tolerance, tolerating for the political class, because the opposition was easy, to reference that figure. But again, for the Buhari regime, don't forget that at that time there was a huge advocacy around open toileting. There was a huge advocacy around increasing access to electricity, and a number of attempts to also, of course, bring into reality the implementation of the millennial goals, most of the millennial goals during this time in office. So for me, I can see a linkage anyway from what the Buhari regime did with what the present government is doing, and I define my linkage as even from the base of the party itself. The party that God used late President Muhammadu Buhari and the current president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to establish. For the first time in more than 30 years, we could reference a political party that we could define easily what ideological standing they belong to. So I think going forward, there's just a need to create a more symbiotic linkage with what the late president was doing in terms of circling more Nigerians out of the poverty circle. It's very important. It's if you have a latency, the economic latency that we are talking about at this time, and I think so far with the economic reforms, the unintended effect had been an increase in the number of poor people, So, and that is why, yes, we have seen a lot of fiscal, fiscal rates, fiscal impacts at the macro level. We are seeing inflation rate is falling. Most likely, the benchmark MPR rate will fall by the time the next Monetary Council meeting, Monetary Policy Council meeting holds. We will see some other, which will also translate to reduction in banking interest rates and all that. But everybody agrees that the millions of Nigerians that are the base of the pyramid are yet to feel it, So that should be a major focus. Everything should be done, to get to hit that large community. We are talking of more than 35% of the population. So if this government is able, of course, to achieve that, it would have been a major accomplishment. And of course, it will be an accomplishment that can be worthy of the memory, of late President Muhammadu Buhari.
Well, let's look at the policies very quickly, Dr. Korede. And there's a lot of people have said this, that you vote for parties, you don't vote for individuals per se, especially when you are looking at the legalese surrounding elections and all that. They say it's the party, that is the platform, you vote for the party and all that. But in terms of Buhari, Buhari came to every election with his reputation. Whichever political party, be it CPC, AMPP, and eventually APC, he had his followership based on, a reputation he has built over time. And that resonates with me in terms of, being able to identify him with his particular character and what to expect from that character. Are we having that now in our polity? Especially, it's not a reputation built at the national level. It was built from his service in the military to the, positions he held while he was rising through the ranks. Are we having that now? And are we, will Nigerians queue behind such characters now as we, continue in our democratic journey?
That brings to mind the principle of party supremacy. Yes, the parties are the ones being voted for in every election, the political parties, officially by INEC. You vote for the party. Actually, you thumbprint for the party, not for the individual. But the party in itself, the owners of the party, the powers that be within the party, the management of the party, will look at personalities that has a history of good leadership, that has a good history of followership, those that will be the winning card for them. The personalities of these two amiable gentlemen, Muhammadu Buhari GCF, are now late, and the incumbent President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had built, political values for themselves over the decades. So irrespective of the political party they are representing or they are campaigning upon, they will always win any election whilst alive. So I don't want to say that their personalities, their persona towers over the party, with due respect to what we have agreed to allow party supremacy, to take over our administration of politics, by INEC's council, to political parties. And this is how, you don't find people who will come into a party, spend all the monies and then ask the executives to park to one side while they rule over the party. There is party supremacy in Nigeria, despite the fact that our individuals, those candidates, are the ones that would have gotten, a good history, of good quality in terms of integrity, good governance, to ensure that when they become the candidate, they have the capacity to democratically win such elections for the party.
All right. Ms. First, as you listen to what Dr. Korede was saying just now, we saw a movement, in 2015, what everybody now calls a coalition. They called it a merger. In 2015, 2013, moved into 2014, and then eventually contest in 2015. AMPP, CPC, APC, and an element of APGA being a part of that contraption. Now that we have, this meeting of minds, and we're seeing some of them now, still coming up based on their, yes, it was a merger, but we still see elements of those parties, in terms of their outlook to governance. We had people in the CPC bloc in that government, people of the APC extraction, the government, AMPP, as well as APGA. What have we learned from that? Were they able to, under his supervision and during his presidency, were they able to fulfill their promises? What Nigerians were looking for in 2015? Why that was such a popular platform?
Yes, like I said earlier, that when the president was elected, now late President Muhammadu Buhari, the expectation was high. People felt that indiscipline corruption and some other things were at the height of it. And if nothing is done, Nigeria was going to crash. Now, when he came, the body language thing we talked about, you could notice that for the first 3, 4, 5 months, things were right. And we started talking about body language. What that tells you is that we know how to do what is right. But for some reasons, for some benefit that we get from what is wrong, we refuse to do what is right. Now, normally, you are a Nigerian, and I wouldn't want to say that, but we also need to tell ourselves the truth. Whenever there is any system that is meant to check corruption, you will see people investing money on how to circumvent that system, spending so much money on how to, okay, this one just came. They said that one is very strong now. You cannot enter NTA now. If you are not a staff, if you don't have a card, if you don't have something that will make you enter, somebody will bring out millions of naira to see how they can circumvent that particular structure that has been put in place. So after about 6 months, for the first 6 months, people were studying how do we circumvent this man that is Megaskia, that's the man that does everything right. They were now also looking for how to infiltrate those that were appointed and those that were close to him. We started seeing things like snakes swallowing money and some other things in the country. But the thing is, as far as Buhari was there at that time, from what we saw, those CPC voices, ANPP, ABGA, and some other people, they were silent. Once Buhari is there, Buhari is there. It was about Nigeria. But whenever they want to discuss things at the regional level, we will not be able to say, okay, Dr. Korede here is light skin, I'm dark skin, let us do. By the time we come to Fisayo is talking to every one of us as panelists, and nobody is light skin, nobody has another color. So while he was holding sway as the president of this country, those were also voices. And don't forget that first 2 years governance, every other thing is next politics. So immediately that politics comes, you will discover that those other smaller voices will begin to speak out more, because politics is very local. What we have in Abuja here is not politics, except if you are from FCT.
Yeah.
What we have here is people coming from those regions. So when the noise, the CPC block, the ANPP block, the ACN and the ABGA, a part of it, when they want to get the next power, you begin to see voices coming. After all, you were not there. After all, you were not this. After all, you were not this. But Buhari tried as a president to be able to unite. But you can never, I would say, you cannot silence these voices, because they came together as a coalition that we are calling them now. Then it was a merger to form the government. But when they go back, there are still places like, I'm from Delta State, or up until very recently, they will tell you that go and sleep. Delta is PDP and nothing can be done. So if that PDP should come into a coalition, when we go back to Delta, the PDP's voice will be louder than any other coalition that you'll be hearing. But as far as we're coming to Abuja, the one united front will be louder. So Buhari tried as much as possible to create that one Nigeria image, but going back to the states, because politics is local, we see how those voices that were echoing.
I'm coming back to you, sir, but let me just take Dr. Sanusi on this. You know, the former coordinating minister of the economy, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo, while I was the head of WTO right now, World Trade Organization, mentioned that when you fight corruption, corruption fights back. And we continue to see that play. Is a flaw in our administrative process when even when you come with good intentions, there are people, there are so-called some cabal, some whatever contraption you want to call it, just staying there waiting to make sure that you score an own goal.
Well, good intentions alone do not curb corruption. You need to put structures in place. You need to introduce technology. You need to study, do your research, study the system, understand where the loopholes are, and where you need to replace, manual, services or services provided by human beings. If it's going to be better to use machines or, technology, you do it. And then you have mechanisms, to check at every point. A Buhari is required, right, at the helm for corruption to dissipate. But then him alone cannot do it without having all of the structures in place. I remember when he just came in, some people started returning money, some people were running away, going on exile. People just thought it was going to be like it was in 1983. But, obviously it couldn't be like that because the processes are different now. There needs to be investigation. You need to be found culpable. You need to go to court. The court needs to do their bit. At all of these stages, corruption is involved. It's quite sad. So it's difficult if it's something that most people, citizens, staff of agencies, even staff of anti-corruption agencies, staffs in the judiciary, everybody is in the business, except you. And when he tried,
it's a business now.
It's a business. It's a way of life. Unfortunately, I remember when he tried, to arrest some judges. You remember corrupt judges? He had facts and everything. So how can you carry a corrupt judge to be tried within his domain and expect that he would come up without having a clean? With having his image rubbish. They see it as this is one of us. We should not allow this to happen because it's sending a wrong signal. So how best can you do it? He tried that, it didn't work. There was a backlash. Even within the anti-corruption agency, a head of the agency had to be removed, because of all of this. But then I also noticed something was happening. People that were close to Buhari that knew that he didn't like corruption or anything associated with corruption, they latched on that and used it to also displace some of their enemies that were not necessarily corrupt. Because once you tell a Buhari that this person is corrupt, you have already spoiled his mood. And if it's somebody that he likes, the best he can do is to say, okay, let the person step aside, let him be investigated, especially if you bring some sort of concocted evidence that the person is. Most of the time, if you go and investigate those people, you find out that they were innocent. It happened on 1 or 2 occasions during the last administration that I remember of. People try to use the fact that he doesn't like corruption to fight. But it's a good thing to have a leader that is known for his stance against corruption. But beyond that, we need to put checks, balances in place. Under him, there was TSA, there was different things that were introduced into our system through the Ministry of Finance, through the Accountant General Office to check corruption, which I felt were good innovations. But to what extent were we able to do that? Because in all aspects, from procurement to even budgeting to even payments, all of those, you find loopholes in corruption. So to what extent was he able to, curb it? Is what we're talking.
Dr. Korede Martins wanted to make an intervention.
Yes, just an intervention, just for quick second. Yeah, there was an advocacy, subtle advocacy, with respect to the imperative of the government looking through ensuring that the macroeconomics that we've been developing over time actually comes micro, that is for people to now benefit, at the grassroots, from policies of government. And this speaks to, the vision of Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, at the speech at the National Assembly, the second tenure. It's 2 years anniversary, the second anniversary as president. And he said that, yes, the first 2 years we've addressed macroeconomics, we're seeing, but by the third year, that we're latching on to, and the budget 2025 that will commence as soon as National Assembly, reconvenes properly after all this, we'll deal with microeconomics, to which, they've budgeted a lot of money for things that will go to, micro businesses, small and medium enterprises, starting with the will be expanded, student loan scheme that a lot of parents who can't afford to, train their children in universities and polytechnics are benefiting, from. They're looking at local government, 1 million, nano businesses being supported, looking for, how small, medium-scale enterprises will be given single-digit loans. And at the larger scale, if you're a manufacturer and you have, excuse me, you own a factory that is verifiable and you want to resuscitate your factory. Once they found out that you truly, running this business, you need money. 1 billion naira will be available through Central Bank of Nigeria to do this single-digit, credit for you. So all these are embedded in this 2025, budget that is oncoming. So we're trusting that once National Assembly reconvenes properly after all these national programs, the life of the 2025 budget will take effect, and all this will be. So that will put pay and answer to the imperatives and the, that.
I want to latch on some of the, submissions of Dr. Sanusi Mohammed, where he, works, I don't know whether it's pro bono or just closely with the Central Delivery Unit of Nigeria, under the Special Advisor on Policy. And, there's concept and there's the implementation of that policy. And that's where sometimes the human interface fails in terms of, making sure that this gets there. For instance, let's look at the issue of removal of subsidy and the windfall that has come at the state level, to just start with that. Sometimes almost triple some of the monies that they've collected, more than double in some cases, in some months. And just as we're having that discussion, we can see in our shots Senator Kashim Shettima, Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, with the Governor of Borno State, Professor Umar Babagana Zulum, all coming into the compound of the former head of state, arriving the venue now. Recall that it was Vice President Kashim Shettima went all the way to London to, bring back the remains of the late former president, and now they've arrived at the venue of the event now in Daura. We just saw them coming in. So I understand that they are leaving the residence for the early part where the prayers will be held by the Imam there of Daura. Will get there with the ambience and the commentaries shortly once our colleagues, are ready. Just before, we joined them, we're just talking about, concepts and making these policies work. So we've seen the governors receive much more than they were receiving. Now disbursement and making sure that people get, in terms of sectoral impact in their states is where perhaps some of the states are stuck in terms of the citizens feeling directly why the objective of removing the subsidy and making sure that Nigerians directly benefit from the removal of the subsidy with increment in the allocations to the state. But the citizens are saying, we can see the AC, but we are not feeling the bills.
Yes, I'd say that advocacy should be directed to the citizens of the state. You see, Mr. President and the current federal administration, as you rightly said, has given increased budgetary allocation to states and local governments, which is unprecedented, in our annals of governance in Nigeria. So civil society organizations, advocates and all that should encourage citizens of each state to ask their governors questions, to write letters, to go ahead with subtle campaigns, to demand for how these monies are being spent every 30 days. They come to the Federal Ministry of Finance, and the 1.6, 1.5, 1.7 trillion naira is shared between the three tiers of government, and governors go away with tens of billions of naira per state, and local governments get theirs directly. So people need to direct advocacies towards that. The federal government is doing what they could in terms of providing infrastructure and promised that, we'll go into actually ensuring that citizens benefit. But the president of Nigeria can only do the best by ensuring he allocates enough money to your governor. And it's the duty and responsibility of your governor and his cabinet to ensure that that translates into assisting, the citizenry. After all, there cannot be a federal government without local government and states. Nigeria is made up of the 774 local governments and FCT and the states. Federal government is not, geographically Nigeria. The geographical expression of Nigeria are the 774 local governments that are embedded in states, that is the states and the FCT. So, and we have governors who are educated, governors who are experienced, governors that are voted for by the people. So our advocacy should go to the people of each state to make demands of their excellencies, for them to bring to account what they are doing with these monies they are receiving from the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR every month.
All right, to understand the prayer is taking place, so take it to that one.
wajen Hassan ma yana taimaka mai cikin gidan mai. Ina ga ba cikin sai yake. gane in wancan sarakunan suka fita biyu gudun za su yi da sauran sai su ga mutane can ba sa tafiya ne can a tsaye suke ka gane magana ba ka gane kamara ta madanta amma wani mutane sun san kansa ya kuma ina an yi nuna maki a cikin sai suke wasu kuwa ya shi ake sallar ina gaya ma fulani nan duka muna na an sa mu cikin helifat amma kuma duka ba abin da wanda ya sa abin da ake a waje ta zo da karfe biyar Allah ta ga da maka yan jarida su kansu ba za su iya baka labari ba abin da wannan zai baka ina gab da yake
That was the funeral prayer led by the Chief Imam of Daura and attended by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in honor of late President Muhammadu Buhari. And the place was, the helipad was too full that the funeral had to be conducted outside and with the remains inside the because of the air. And ambulance is now being moved out of the premises or the surrounding of the helipad to the residence of the late leader, where he'll be laid to rest within the courtyard of that private residence here in Daura. That attracted where he lived. He lived a significant portion of his life here, especially when he left the military, and after leaving office as president, the 15th president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Led by the president as days of mourning, flags flying at half-mast, and all ministries, departments, and agencies directed to open condolence register at the entrances of their various offices in honor of the great leader who is now receiving the final respect from the nation he served for several decades, because he joined the military in 1962, so he has been serving the country for more than 6 decades. 1962 to 2025 is exactly 63 years. Now the president, vice president, emir of Daura, ministers, and all dignitaries are moving towards the residence of former President Muhammadu Buhari, which is located not far away from this helipad here in Daura. It's about 250 meters away from this place, and it is there within the courtyard he will be laid to rest, which is the final respect in his honor. And the 7-day mourning continues till Sunday next weekend. And the third day Fidel prayer is expected to be held tomorrow morning, that is Tuesday, at his private residence, and is expected to be attended by the Vice President Kastina, who has been with the family of the deceased, together with the Chief of Staff to the President, Right Honorable Femi Bajabiamila. And the prayers is part of the morning. It's an additional activity after the funeral prayers to seek Allah's mercy and forgiveness upon a deceased person. And of course, thousands of people are here and join in doing so, and more are expected to do it again at the Fidel prayer, which with Vice President Kastina, who representing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, on that occasion. Now we are expecting to see if our colleagues can get it, the location of the burial within the courtyard of his private residence here in Daura.
The prayers have been concluded as supervised by the Kashim Shetima all witnessed the prayer, and now the movement is to the family compound of the late president, and where he will be buried at this courtyard. I was seeing shots of his final resting place on your left there. That's where the remains being awaited by members of his family, close associates, as well as dignitaries who have come to witness the exercise. Sometimes religion humbles you. After traversing the whole world, you come back and then you see the final resting place, then you know that man is just on a journey.
Yes.
Dr. Sanusi.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I think, this is deliberate. God wants us to understand that this life is transient, and that, as He has written in various holy books, there is a life after this life, and do not try to make this life your final abode by, acquiring what you don't require. If you look at the final resting place of our former beloved president, Buhari, you see that it's just a small square inch of dog, place, soil for him, to rest eternally. This is also a lesson for everyone, really, whether you are in office, whether you're a big man, whether you are, just a poor person. We are all going to die. Every soul shall taste death, and that will be your final resting place. Everything you've acquired, all the houses, all the vehicles, all the money that we all strive for, you're not going with anything. Yeah, you're only just going to go there with your legacy, your good deeds, and all the shortcomings that you have. And at the end of the day, you account to your Creator. So there's a big lesson there for people that think. But then it's just we sit down and just soulfully talk about these things. But by the time the president is laid to rest, after 2-3 days, everybody will just go about their normal business again, which is also a lesson in itself that just like late President Buhari lived his life, he didn't really care about what people were saying. He had a focus, he had his principles and his legacy that he wanted to leave behind. And he knew that at the end of the day, he would be alone. So if he cared about what people said and he did things that were not right, now he's alone. He's now with his Creator. He now has to account. So we shouldn't toe that path of doing what's wrong just to please human beings. We should also always strive as individuals, as leaders, to be fair and firm, to stand on what's right, and then at the end of the day, you know that you're going to account for it.
All right, I was saying former governor of Nasarawa State there, Jalaji Tanko Amakura, all of them are moving into the compound of the former president to give him a befitting farewell as the funeral burial rites are about to commence. Earlier we saw the governor of Borno State, Professor Umar Babagana Zulum, also getting into the compound there, and we are waiting the president as well. Will also be at the burial site as well, and close associates and members of his immediate family are there as well, including the governor of Kastina, who has been welcoming people into Kastina State and now the compound. As you can see, that's the final resting place of former President Muhammadu Buhari. Like Dr. Sanusi said earlier, from the big residence of the villa and different places around the world, for man, at the end of the day, it's not much more than just the size of your body laid to Mother Earth. And politicians there as well will know that what remains of the dearly departed president are his works and the mark he left on the various places he worked and people he impacted upon, Dr. Kinshiju.
So that's the Holy Bible tells us, that it's good to go to a place of burial, than to go to a place of celebration, because when you are partaker in such, you understand the imputation of existence itself and the reason for life. That it's a reminder to all humans alive that one day we will depart. How we depart will also be determined by ourselves. But the truth of the matter is, no matter how we departed, there's just a small space for us, in the ground, and that it is a memory of what we have done. It is the numbers of people we have impacted. It is how the extent to which we have developed, if we are empowered, develop our environment, that people would remind us about. Because the reality, and as we are seeing, is that life itself is not about, it's not in the assets we acquire. It is actually in the number of people that fondly remember us, And perhaps this has a way, I am not a prophet, I am not so religious, but I believe that this has a way of also following whoever departs this world into the other world that I also believe in, If you had impacted people very well, especially where you are being a beneficiary of the collective. And I'm saying, for instance, you represent the interest of people in your constituencies, in your local governments, in your country. You are the custodian of the aspirations, the needs of these millions of people, these multiple numbers of people. In what way have you been able to serve the purpose for which they have invested in you? And that perhaps makes politics, in my mind, perhaps the most strongest, the highest, the climax, the peak of all responsibility required of humans, because at every point in time, in the gathering of people, there will be leadership that are supposed to serve the needs of the people. And we are the people that invested their trust, their confidence in you. How have you been able to return to deliver, their expectations and all that? We sit there today, Howards, and it's not just in this studio alone, and I'm very sure studios in various parts of this country, perhaps various parts of the world, talking about this great man, because in different ways he had impacted us. And some of us can actually stick out our neck and say that in truth and indeed, we testify to the fact that this man lived like this and as this. But how many politicians that had walked the face of the heart of Nigeria can we also reference, and give testimony to about this? So we pray that as we evolve as a country, as a nation, that we have more people that would that would determine, to give more of themselves to the people, especially when they find themselves in position of responsibilities. And it's not just about politics, even in the civil service, either at the federal level, at the state level, at the local government level. It's important that essentially we have the determination to serve, and indeed to serve in deed and in truth.
Who's the first toss, Fifen?
Doc has said it all. There is a quote from my pastor in those days as a growing up younger man, that I would die empty. It means that when it is time for me to go, there will be nothing that I should have done that I did not do. Looking at that grave, I took note of the firewood. Did you see the piece of wood?
Yes, that's what they used to call it.
Yes, with all the glamour, with everything. I've been to that compound. I know how big the compound is. And if you look at the size of the grave, it's an inconsequential fraction of the whole of the compound. And this is a man, he died in London. He was flown here to Kastina, to Daura, even to his compound, and now he's ending somewhere there. So the question should now be, with all these our bragado, as it were, to what end? I'm a journalist. I've done that for a couple of years, and I can tell you how some people. Doc made a statement that, especially if you were made by the collective, that is, some that enjoyed scholarship, some that the state trained, they are the ones that will now oversee a system where the children of the rich can no longer afford that same education or afford the basic necessities of life. When you finish all this, let's even assume that you are not a Muslim, your grave might not be like this, but we still have the normal standard of 6 feet, and it will not be too big. The best you can get is to have a tomb house over you, and the tomb house too is not also a very big building. So at the end of it, we will end somewhere. So now that we are alive, to those that are serving, to those that are reporting, to those that are holding one position or the other, you will either be remembered by the problems you created or the ones that you solve. So it is a time for us to look inward, look at ourselves, look at the positions that we have been given in the past, how we used it, look at the position that we are currently occupying, and for some of us that are also aspiring to have positions, what will you do when you eventually get there? Dr. Ruben Abati, I remember he wrote something when he left with President Jonathan. He said, the phones are no longer ringing, meaning that when you leave that position, this your larger than life attitude, thinking that you have everything, thinking that you are in control of everything, will no longer be there. And at the end of the day, it will just be you, what you have done, and that little grave where you will end. And for those of us that believe in the life hereafter, you also account to your Creator how you spent your time. So it's actually a time of sober reflection, not for the dead anymore, because he is done with his own. It's for those of us that are still left, and nobody's going to leave this world alive. I remember a colleague that wrote part of the tribute he wrote for President Buhari. He said, oh, you have gotten there. The rest of us are on the way. We are coming. And somebody said, why would you write something like that? He said, for each day you wake up, you sleep, you wake up, you are getting closer to your grave. And that is the truth. So whatever privileged position you have, the power that you have, make a difference while you still can make that difference. I don't like this part. As a journalist, when you interview people that have occupied offices before, you see them talking about some of their regrets, some of the things they were supposed to do. Some of them will even be encouraging the incumbent. This is what you should have done. But we normally ask them, while you were there, why didn't you do it? If you know that this is right, you should have done it while we were there. But give and take is a lesson to every one of us. And we pray that this will also serve as a lesson. The highest position in Nigeria is the position he has occupied, not once, but twice, and he was also a governor and some other positions that he held in this country. So if you can get to the position of a president of the Federal Republic, and at the end that is where you are buried, no matter who you are in this country, no matter the money you have made in this country, one day you will also go this way, and you'll be remembered by the legacies that you leave behind. So it's actually a sober time for every one of us, and we hope that those of us that are still breathing can learn from this, not just to participate in talking about Buhari. Buhari has finished his own. It is left for us now to also use the time that we have left, so that when we also leave, people can say good things about us. It might not be in this setting where the world is saying one or two about the president, but in that your little corner, also make sure that you make your impact felt, and that people also celebrate you.
Dr. Korede Martins.
Yeah, I like to say to my brother, not to worry, your appointment is on the way. Well, the man Muhammadu Buhari, he came, he saw, he has conquered. He has left the stage for you, I, and us, collective. The stage is there for us to continue, act the roles that we are performing. And the end, it doesn't matter, number of decades to come, the end shall still come for this mortal body with time. So what will determine where you end up will be your activities on your relationship with the fellow human beings, what you do actually. So let's make it positive, let's make it goodly, let us make it a rewarding relationship between us and fellow human beings. And by the special grace of the Almighty, the hereafter, positivity, al-Jannah shall be our portion.
All right, Doctor, let's just look at, politically. We've been talking of 10 million, 8 million, 10 million, 8 million that he returned in many of, even 12 million, that he returned in many of those elections. Is that movement still on, or is it just about the man?
Well, the movement, to a large extent, I'd say, is still on. We cannot say 100% that it's there, because recently you find some actors, try to shift base and form a quote-unquote coalition. That is the actors in 2015. Some of them, very few though. But with the governance structure of the current administration, the Buhari movement and the Renewed Hope movement, Agenda movement, forms now a larger political group, a larger political force that will, pave way to improving upon the political gains and the numeracy of those that voted Muhammadu Buhari. So the movement is still on. It's larger. Positive democratic political force is on. We believe in Buhari, and we're carrying on with Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR.
I may have to pose the same question to, Dr. Kinshiju. Do you still believe in that bloc, or are there splinters based on political realities?
Of course, there are splitters. We are tracking them. Because the truth is that whatever Buhari does is our heritage. The Buhari movement itself is a political heritage, and some of us that are also politically inclined claim it. We determine that we are part of it. And more consciously is the fact that we have a continuation of that heritage in the present government, federal administration led by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And why I say that is because essentially and in profound ways, either so many people agree or not, it is evolving for us to understand the reality of an ideologically driven political environment, which these two people share. So if we describe Buhari as a social democrat, we describe Bola Ahmed Tinubu as a social democrat, and we see a congruence of sorts in the policies they believe in the policy they have conceptualized, under different circumstances, but essentially we are saying that it dovetails to the people. And that's the most important thing. And therefore, if Buhari's immediate objective was to, of course, elevate the economic standing of millions of people that found themselves in the poverty community, and it is also becoming clear, that Tinubu's principal objective is in a bigger way to also elevate this large number of people, onto away from the poverty community. So there's a coalition of thought, and I'm deliberately using the word coalition here because that become perhaps the most popular cliche, as it were, in the Nigerian political lexicon over the last how many weeks. I'm abusing the real sense of it, because when you talk about coalition, you're talking about a convergence of thoughts, a convergence of activities of a number of people who have an objective, to achieve. The merger of starting 2013 and crystallized in 2015 tells us a story of how people from different diverse political leanings could come together and under a single individual form a political direction that drives towards a principal, objective. And we are talking about APC today because there are reference milestones that party, that group of people had, survived. There have been turbulence, there have been storms, but we see that rather than threats of destruction, we are seeing a stronger, unified platform. And while some people that, perhaps we also talk politics here, while some people are trying to compare the merger of 2015, crystallized in 2015, with the coalition of 2025, I asked what exactly is the basis for that comparison. One, the driving forces that culminated in the 2015, what do you call it, merger, is lacking in the coalition we are seeing. In that merger, we saw the fact that politicians from different leanings, from different proclivity, were coming as a result of dissatisfaction with the policies that were being conceived and implemented at the federal level, and you saw not just ordinary people who were disgruntled, who could not access power. You saw people who were in power, determined to change things. And perhaps that was why change became, the reference phrase of that era. So, to a large extent, I believe that the Nigerian political space is still deserving of the vision of Buhari, because you have that millions of people that desires leadership, of the kind of class that Buhari was ready to give. And I think in a large manner, and I'm not just being partisan here, I think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has determined to also provide, or even, it's not even about provide. If we track back to President Tinubu's period in Lagos State, and we can reference what he did as governor, it's easy for us, of course, to extrapolate and situate that at the federal level and determine the fact that from where Buhari left, this president is taking off. And is going to take off with those 12 million voters. And this will reflect in 2027. I am sure of that. Because those voters will be looking out for somebody that will crystallize their aspirations, Look at some of these policies in place, especially the tax act when you see the tax acts, it tells you without any doubt the fact that you had somebody who is the head of a sovereign administration ready to impact the lives of the Nigerian poor. Because that's what the Tax Act is all about. It's not about increasing revenue. Yes, we generate revenue, increase revenue, but it's more about elevating the economic status of millions, more than 30% of the Nigerian people that are limited in the economic class. So I believe the nature of politics that we will experience going into 2027 will be very, very, very different, from the ones we have been experiencing before. Because this is not going to be about 12 million votes plus.
We will soon are looking at live pictures from Daura, the streets leading to the residence of the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, late President Muhammadu Buhari. Very shortly, we would give you live pictures from the grave site as Nigerians and eminent Nigerians, family members enter into the compound. As once we get steady pictures from there, naturally there will be some push and shove as you're getting closer to the grave site. We showed you pictures from the grave site, but very shortly we would be back there once our cameraman gets steady shots from there. But this is just the street outside the fence of the house, and then we'll get better pictures shortly. As you can see, outside broadcast vans from different media establishments also trying to get a vantage point to capture the moment. While we reflect on this, Doctor, this is just a day, but it is perhaps to reflect on the entire life of a man who has served the nation, in some cases made some controversial comments himself, and handled controversial situations, and but for one thing, he remained steadfast to his beliefs, and in his own way for 8 years, tried to shape the direction of state. As we begin to, round off, and of course, once we get signals and then wrap up the funeral rites, we will also be left with our thoughts of him as the nation bids him farewell. But in terms of public administration, which you are a part of, what are your takeaways from the life he lived and the farewell being given to him by Nigerians?
Well, my takeaway is that you need to just generally be a good person. You have to have principles, you have to have integrity, you have to live for something and die for something, and you have to have the understanding that there is a higher calling which everybody should strive to. Ultimately, as Muslims, we believe that we are here to worship our Lord, our Creator, and by so doing, any sphere of life that you find yourself, whether it's public service, whether it's civil service, whether it's just business, your relationship with people and how you project that worship in terms of your relationship is also part of worship. But then let me intervene in the previous question that you asked about this 12 million votes, whether it's now
still intact or
yes.
There are splinters.
First of all, God gives power. And General Muhammadu Buhari's consistent 12 million votes, has been a product of hard work over the years. And for me, the way I see it, would have been happy as APC if he were alive in 2027 to come and also raise the hand of President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It would have made things easier. But for those that were relying on that to happen as a way of cheat, to easy way to win the election, well, President Muhammadu Buhari is no more. But then the God that gives power to whom he wants is still there, and he will remain there forever. So while we go back spiritual to pray to God to give us that direction, especially in this difficult time that we've lost a colossus and someone that we all converge around, it is also important for us to reflect and use his demise to re-strategize, right? If we're planning And one of our plans was relying on him. Now he's no more. And the votes are there. They are like lost sheep now. It's going to be splinters. We're going to have different people trying to, the coalition, they are trying to grab their share, APC governors, APC stakeholders. It will take a while before we have a figure, as General Muhammadu Buhari, that will have these 12 million votes. But the votes are there. APC will definitely inherit the bulk of it. But then we need to work hard to get more people from this coalition. We need to prevent our base from falling into the hands of the coalition. Because the truth is, as a politician, I'm not oblivious of the fact that a coalition or a merger that we did back in 2013 that...
All right, let's very shortly, we'll get pictures from the family compound and the final resting place. As you can see now, the body is very close now. So we are getting close to, you know, we are getting close now to getting to, you know, lay the remains of the president to rest in his compound. So we are getting close to it now, and very shortly, this would, you know, culminate. I think there should be some prayers as well before that is done. Perhaps you can give us an idea of what to expect in the next few moments.
I mean, the main prayer has been done, which is Janaiza. Right now, they would, you know, fix the grave properly, set it in such a way that he can fit in the way that it's recommended in Islam. And he will now be buried, the grave will be covered. But then, before this is done, or after it's done, you would have maybe the imam there or a preacher there that would just generally talk about life and death, and just a sermon, and that's about it. He will be buried and everybody will depart. And then other people that wish to, you know, give the final respect and just offer some prayers, you know, this is the time to do it, although this is a continuous thing, but they would continue to do that.
little is enough to get your desired quantity.
former President Muhammadu Buhari being read by the Chief of Defense.
Citation of former President Muhammadu Buhari and of course his military accomplishments being read out by the Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General C.J. Musa there, talking about his accomplishments and the what he has done in different postings. Already talking about is more or less sounds like an eulogy because he served in various capacities in the army, and the citation is being read by the Chief of Defense Staff. As you rightly said earlier, he served with distinctions in different formations before he got more recognitions by being the governor of Northeast and of course Borno State. You can see in the background the Vice President Senator Kashim Shettima still looking quite sad and contemplative in the background there, and the president is just out of camera, but more to the left of the shot, all watching the process.
Again, Democrats. So in 2007, we followed suit the same thing, the same pattern.
Okay. This is TVC visual.
So very shortly, the Nigerian flag that was draped over him now are being folded by officers and men of the Nigerian Armed Forces. Looking at the process, of course, this is befitting for a former military, of course, a former general who was an asset to the Nigerian military, throughout his active life.
It's very befitting indeed, and it just can't get better than this. Once a life of service in the military right from when he was 19 years old as a young commissioned officer. He served in various formations of the Nigerian Army and then rose through the senior officers' ranks to hold positions to which credibility was the order of the day for him till he became the head of state of Nigeria. Left the military and then became chairman Petroleum Trust Fund and came back again to become Nigeria's democratically elected president twice. It cannot just get better for someone. It's a lesson to be learned by each and every one of us, that everything that Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, now late, stood for is what we as Nigerians need to stand for if we're going to have this kind of honor and accolade, in our last day on earth. Naysayers can say whatever, but you go ahead and achieve 1% of what this gentleman has achieved. Then we'll say that probably you're still trying. Now this is honor personified. It's a national honor given to somebody who came as an unassuming young lad and rose through the ranks. Today, he's been honored by his country. He's been honored by all the supporters. He's been honored by presidents. He's been honored by leaders of thought worldwide. He's been honored by the international community. And that stands for him. It's an honor to his family. I said earlier in the morning that amongst his 10 children, there's no verifiable negative controversy about them. It has to do with the father figure, the way he trained his children as a father who was always available to do that. The way he brought up his wife. And of course, when the first wife passed, the second wife came, had her own children for him. as well. Now you can see them by the bearer's side. This shows you that this is a man of, he was a man of dignity, that has been buried here today. A true leader of Nigeria, a man of conscience, a man of honor, a man that is frugal in every respect of it. You can see a conundrum of even opposition members, in the political space. They're all here with him. Retired generals are here. Former national chairman of political parties are here. Generals that are serving are all here. This is just be better than this. It's a big lesson for each and every one of us to learn.
Please, can you explain to us exactly what is happening now, Dr. Sanusi?
Okay, so he needs to be buried with the white on the white wrapper, and they are just going to lay him to rest in his grave now. There are specific ways that he needs to be positioned. So I'm sure, with the imam there and everyone there, they will make sure that is positioned rightly. And once that is done, there's a process of covering, the grave. You will have some those wool that you saw there earlier. The wood there, they will be arranged, accordingly, and then the soil will begin to be dropped. In some instances, they'll put some leaves as well, just to as part of the ritual, and then is then covered. So that's how they are laying him now, as you can see.
All right. Close associates, members of his family, all ably assisted by Vice President Kashim Shettima, former governor of Zamfara State, Abdulaziz Yari, current governor of Kastina State, Governor Rada, and other dignitaries there. Of course, the former governor of Kastina State is also there. He was also his former speaker, talking about Alhaji Bello Masari, all at the gravesite now to give the former president befitting farewell. You can see some close members of the family. His son, one of his sons, right there, just near the gravesite, and this is quite humbling, this final journey that attests to the transience of human existence. No matter how long you stay, it's still a journey compared to how much longer you will be in the hereafter, Doctor.
Yes, it's quite humbling, and we keep drawing lessons. We need to draw lessons. This life, just take it simply, take it as it comes. It's not even worth begrudging anybody. You're holding grudges. You're taking things seriously. You're going to leave this world, and luckily enough, the president, while leaving office, asked for forgiveness from those that he has offended. As a Muslim, I think it was in order, for him to do that, because there is no how you would be in various positions for this long, and then you're finishing your second tenure as president, and you wouldn't have offended people, either consciously or subconsciously. And as Muslims, when fellow Muslims die like this, we are all asked to just forgive and forget whatever has happened, and pray for the repose of his soul. We continue to pray that Allah will have mercy on his soul and will grant him Jannah and forgive him all his sins. It's quite humbling, like you said. You see that after all of the positions, all of the awards, all of the accolades, all of this talk about him being an upright person, an honest person, someone that has lived well, which comments were largely positive, which we also say Alhamdulillah for, because it also has a way of clearing the road for you out there with your Creator. But you can sitting here or you're there. But obviously, since people are gathered there, they will use this occasion to also remind people. The imam there or other scholars there, I'm sure would do that. Also remind people, do a sermon to remind everybody of the importance of living well, because the inevitability of death, which is sure for everyone, and then just encourage everyone to go on about living honest lives with integrity. And of course, I'm sure they would use the life of the president of the former president as an example. It's a moment that I think, it calls for a very sober reflection. And the fact that most of our elites are there is also an opportunity to remind them, to be of good behavior and serve the people well. Because at the end of the day, this is where we all end.
It seems as if there's a reluctance, Dr. Kishiju, from some of the associates of the president, at least younger associates of the president, to release him. But the man is on his final journey already with his makeup. I'm seeing Senator Ibikunle Mosu there, also by the graveside, trying to assist while the remains of the former president was being lowered. And as you can see, the dignitaries there, including the chief imam, surrounding the gravesite. At this point, of course, maybe one or two comments will be made. Then, of course, it will be, a farewell for those who have also come to go back to their place. Only seeing one of the sons being consoled there, just behind. As they put the soil in there. So, yes. Doctor, you may want to come in here.
Yes, as you can see, they are trying to get the soil wet, and they are passing it around, just to place on the mat that was previously used to cover. And after that, that layer of wet soil, then they now do the final covering using normal soil. This process, you see a lot of people rushing to help. Everybody wants to be part of it because it's a very, very important part of the ritual of burying someone. And it is encouraged that every Muslim that can attend the Janaiza prayer, which was the prayer you saw earlier, and also attend the burial, has a lot of reward. It comes with a lot of reward from our Creator. That is why you see everybody's trying to be a part of it.
Is there any protocol involved in terms of those who can actually put the soil?
Well, we usually have experts that are there to help guide, but everybody that is close, that is around, can contribute, and it's not for specific people, to do. Of course, you see most people there are men. And I think it has something to do with the religion. It's mostly men that bury, the dead. So they're the ones that can, put the soil and support in the final burial rites.
We're looking at live shots of the final moments, of course, as the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, is being laid to rest in his compound in Daura. The process is being aided by his associates, his family, senior family members. Vice President Kashim Shettima is right there, and the governor of Kastina State is also there. We can see the former governor, the current governor of Borno State, Professor Umar Babagana Zulum, also there, being part of the process. As Doctor, it seems as if the top layer you were talking about has been concluded, and now...
Yes, so the final covering with the topsoil.
Is there a particular reason why they are using hand? Is it part of the ritual too?
No, you could use if there's shovels. You see some people are using shovels, but maybe they don't have enough shovels, so everybody is just trying to be part of it. Everyone wants to be part of it because it's very important, and you get a lot of reward for doing this. Not just because he's the former president. For any Muslim at all, any burial, you are able to attend, to give the last respects and help to facilitate the process of burial. It's considered rewarding, so. And as you can see, the military men are actually, they've cordoned off the place, so you can imagine how many people would have wanted to. Of course, we don't want a situation of stampede, so it's important to just cordon off and allow a few people to do it.
In this case, those doing this do not need to be family members.
No. At all. We're considered as Muslim brothers. So you don't know where the situation of your death and what's going to surround it. But whoever it is, these are the rituals, and, this is what we need to do.
Okay, so I think most importantly, we also need to acknowledge and recognize the organization that had gone into this final journey for the late president. I think it's been a while indeed that Nigerians experienced this kind of state burial, So I think we should give credit to the incumbent administration for putting this together within a very short period, And I'm very sure this is the first time we are actually burying a president and a military ruler at the same time. I can see the timing, that goes into this, despite the fact that the remains are to be brought in from outside the Nigerian jurisdiction. We see there's a lot of compactness.
What we are about to witness is the firing of the volley of the firing party. The battle party commander is taking charge. After the firing, we shall also witness the governor.
All right, so welcome back to the studio. We've been in Kastina. Where the family members and dignitaries received the remains of late President Muhammadu Buhari. And that concludes our live telecast of this special program to honor the late departed President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, who served as democratically elected president from 2015 to 2019 and 2019 to 2023. Before then, he was the military head of state, supervising the affairs of the nation from December 31, 1983 to August 1985. Before I go, just a quick word from all my panelists. This has happened. He's come, he's seen, he's to a reasonable extent conquered, Dr. Nia Kinshiju.
I think he conquered, no reasonable extent, yeah. He conquered, and that is why we are gathered here in his honor, in his memory. Well, he's left us on the journey. All of us individually, collectively continue on the journey, and we pray that, of course, we journey into everlasting radiance and to everlasting glory, because that is the end of man. That for those of us who believe in life after life, that what we do in this life will lead us on to higher life, in our next life.
Festus Stephen.
Yes, thank you very much. As a strategic and development communication expert, I would say that the government of the day should invest more in communication and making sure that the right narratives are passed out there. Since morning, we have been monitoring how the president landed, all the processes, and the humbling part was how he was buried. I can tell you for free that in the weeks to come, even when some of us believe that it will be temporary, you will see a change in behavior, we see a change in orientation on some of the things. And this is what communication is all about. We have seen it from up there. He has been buried, and that is a message to the rest of us that are waiting, that you either be remembered for the problems you solved or the ones that you created.
Doctor.
Yes, I have lost a father, a great mentor, a perfect example that has molded me over the decades. But I've gained also a higher level of leadership acumen, from his life and passing on. And I'm not mourning anymore. Rather, I'm celebrating his life, his legacies heretofore.
Dr. Sanusi.
Late General Muhammad Buhari, our beloved president, our father, our mentor, he came, he saw, he conquered, like you said, and he lived a life worthy of emulation, filled with lessons. And even in death, as you can see from how he was buried, you have a lot of lessons for people to learn. Young people like me coming up in public service. And I'll use this opportunity to appeal to the government. They've given him a befitting state burial, but his legacy should linger. And how they can help do this is to help develop a leadership recruitment mechanism for people that can. We want more Buharis. how do we develop more Buharis? So whatever it takes for them to go into that, to use this as a lesson, to develop, have a leadership development mechanism so that we can have more of the Buharis, would go a long way in shaping this country.
Many thanks, gentlemen. Dr.
Well, till I come your way again, I'm Beniga Olamiton from GTV Africa. Thank you for your time. If you are yet to subscribe, kindly subscribe and be part of it. Part of GTV Africa. Till we see you again. Bye for now.
Also pay their
All right, so gunshot salute to the president, former president, to bid him farewell. Of course, as we've said so many times during the program, he is was a military head of state. He was the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federation, through, of course, as a we received his double tenure and endorsement from Nigerians. So, I mean, with that, we've concluded our coverage of the farewell to the former president. I was just signing out my guests. First of Sweden Regional News Editor, Ben Television, thank you for coming. Of course, Dr. Korede Martins, development expert, you've been here since morning. Thank you for coming. And also to our guests and our friends who joined us via Zoom, Comrade Isa Remu, and of course Senator Itayen, and all who joined us in the course of this broadcast. And for you as well, who spent your holidays watching